This is called an Irish-Hebraic love story. My husband and I became engaged one sweet night in our minute Manhattan kitchen. He got down on his knee, and since there was only room for one of us in the kitchen, I accepted in the dinette. We thought we'd be engaged forever, 10 years at least, but we soon discovered I was pregnant and we had to get married immediately. His family were all devout Irish Catholics who felt you'd burn in hell forever if you conceived out of wedlock. His father already had a heart condition and we didn't want to cause him any more stress, so this was mandatory. I am a Jew. I am the daughter of the first and only ever Miss America, who considers herself a Jewish icon, and she has a big problem with non-Jews. So we didn't have a big cheering section in our two families. I summoned the courage and I hightailed it over to Rosalita's ready-made wedding gowns, where they specialized in gowns for the overweight and the pregnant. I picked a dress in the Empire style so that my already milk-engorged breasts would have some support. And then I had a kind of skirt that flared out, made out of a polyester very stiff material with some overlying netting on it. I kind of looked like an ice cream cone, if you get the image. But Rosalita thought I looked splendido in it, and my hormones were raging so badly, any kind word was a mitzvah. No one would marry us. The Jews didn't want to marry you if there was a non-Jew and you couldn't marry in the temple. The church might have married us, but my mother, the big Jew, would have had an embolism, so we couldn't do that. Finally, we found a rabbi called Shlomo, who was a holdover hippie. He played Kumbaya on the guitar, and a priest called Wendell, who was a Jesuit, and he could sing harmony on Kumbaya. They were a team. They would marry you anywhere, including the Staten Island Ferry. We chose a really sweet place. It's called the Harkness House, and it's dedicated to the dance. And during the week, they have classes, you know, ballet and jazz. And on the weekend, you can rent it and do anything you want there. So there we were in this place with kind of sweaty leotard odor, but a lot of frescoes on the wall, and it was pretty. And when the day arrived, I found myself on the Harkness House toilet lid, sitting there having major existential angst. I thought, wasn't getting married and having children for farmers who needed a lot of help gathering the hay and the eggs? What am I doing here? While I was on the toilet lid, everyone was taking their seats. The Jews to the left, all in black because they're chic. The Irish to the right, all in pastels because it was summer. And black was for the winter and funerals. My mother gave me away. She had already given me away kind of at birth because she wasn't too keen on having me, but she gave me away this night of my wedding. She took me down the aisle. Actually, she paraded me. No, she paraded herself down the aisle because she looked smashing and she wasn't paying for the wedding. So she was in a really good mood. I thought I would collapse under the pressure, but then I spotted my soon-to-be husband at the end of the aisle. He was looking at me as though I were the answer to every riddle, every question since the Neanderthals stood upright. And that look gave me the temerity to continue on down the aisle until I reached his side. And then the world as I knew it kind of vanished. All I knew was that rings were exchanged, the rabbi and the priest hugged each other, the Irish wept, the Jews fixed their hair, and the deed was done. The wedding party was held at a big, wonderful restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. It had a gorgeous mahogany bar and a vast buffet table in the middle, laden with food. The doors opened. The Irish made a beeline for the bar, the Jews for the food. I personally have never seen vultures descend on a dead goat, but you could almost hear the sound of enormous wings flapping as the Jews zeroed in on that food. They all took 4 or 5 plates, because who knew if they came back for seconds if anything would be there. And they circled that table, and they partook of the 3 racks of lamb, 4 turkeys, 6 hams, and 10 pounds of pasta. After several go-arounds, they returned to their tables, balancing their plates on their forearms like proficient waiters. And then the Irish finally unglued themselves from the bar and they were, needless to say, surprised that the entire dining experience had disappeared. There was no food. They were reduced to bread baskets and scarfing down enormous amounts of bread with thick slabs of butter. Well, the band started to play. We had Hava Nagila, we had jigs, and just when I thought it might be time to leave because I couldn't drink or do drugs and was severely resentful of the fact, a very plastered guest pulled me out onto the dance floor. He twirled me. He swirled me. He fell down. His patent leather shoe caught in the hem of my polyester dress, and sure enough, my whole ice cream cone fell off, and I was standing there in a slip, nothing hiding my protruding belly. I was aghast, but the Irish Catholics, for whom we had gotten married in the first place, were actually toasting each other all over again, because since I was married, the pregnant part didn't matter. I didn't understand anything or anyone, but at this point, they all seemed to be having a very good time, except for me. We had our honeymoon in the Cayman Islands because it was the closest place to the United States and was in the Caribbean, and it was all we could afford. But when we got there were hurricane warnings and a gang of Rastafarian convicts on the loose who had already killed 3 people. To cheer ourselves up, we went to a local restaurant that had a specialty dish called land crab. We devoured it. It was delicious. And when we were finished, we went to the owner of the place and said, "Where exactly do you get this wonderful land crab?" And he pointed to the corner where the garbage cans were, and there were several little things scurrying around, and he said, "Land crab." And my knees started to buckle, and my husband grabbed me under my armpits and said, "Don't worry. I hear they import their garbage from the best places." And he made me laugh, and he made me laugh. A great talent. All beginnings have endings. His life ended a few years ago, leaving me alone and desolate. But these days, when I think about him, I remember how it all began. And I love him more than ever for leaving me with such wonderful memories. Thank you.